right. We're going to call the meeting to order of the Municipal Utilities Commission Thursday, July 28, 2022. We'll start with call to order and roll call.
Chairman Scheffler,
Here.
Vice Chairman Van Oosting,
Here.
Commissioner Dimmitt,
Here.
Commissioner Orr,
Here.
Commissioner Van Zant,
Here.
Commissioner Retberg,
Here. Commissioner
Yarish.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we're going to start at number one with public comments, and I guess they can come from several different directions. Do we have any public comments from anyone through any media?
No, Chairman Scheffler, there was nothing received.
Okay. Then we're going to go to number two, which is reports. Boards and commission change. Do we have a report on that?
Actually, all right, good evening. It's great to see everyone here. I think this is the first time since the pandemic everybody's been here, so this is good. Thanks for coming. So I just wanted to give an update. Recently, there's been some changes from the City Council with regards to boards and commissions, and I just want to go over the highlights of what has transpired. And then as I get to the end here, if there's questions, be happy to answer them. So in earlier this month, or was it this month? End of June, the council passed a new ordinance, ordinance number 1943, about boards and commissions. And so these are the highlights. And basically what they did is they kind of set the rules to be uniform across all of the boards and commissions. And so what the main changes that I like to highlight are generally all the boards and commissions are to have a balanced membership with no profession dominating the membership. Generally, I think we're doing fine there. All members must live within the city limits unless the applicant has special knowledge, skill, or expertise relating to the commission. And in this case, the applicant must live in the greater Kingman area. That's a little bit of a change. It's always been a requirement for everybody to be within the city limits. The change is if there is someone that has special expertise that lives outside of the city limits, but in the greater Kingman area, they could be considered for appointment to a board or commission. It's limited to 2, though, no more than 2. One of the big changes is that the term limits have changed. We still have 4-year terms. The change is no more than 1 consecutive reappointment is permitted. And that is a change that we'll feel here in this commission. Many of you are on your 3rd and 4th terms, and so I'll present it at the end. But yeah, some of you won't be eligible for reappointment by the end of this year. This is a minor change. I think it's always been there, but it's a little bit different. Commissioners may be removed with or without cause by the council. If a commissioner has 3 or more unexcused absences during their term, they're deemed to have abandoned their appointment, and the position will be considered vacant. So that's a change as well. Basically, There's always been something, if people haven't been attending, it could go to the council, and the council could remove them. But in this, the change is if there's 3 unexcused absences, then it doesn't need to go council. They just are considered vacated or vacant at that point, and the council can reappoint a new member. And boards and commissions shall have no financial, operational, or oversight authority over city or city departments. So for the Municipal Utility Commission, I think this is very familiar. So this is from the ordinance. The Municipal Utility Commission will act as a review board to study, evaluate, and make recommendations to the council on matters involving exceptions, interpretations, modifications, and appeals to the adopted regulations and system policies. And the commission may meet monthly or as needed. So not much has changed here. Some of the other commissions, their meetings were switched to quarterly. But since you guys have responsibility for reviewing exceptions and interpretations, we need to have you available every month so that we can process things in a timely manner. So just to recap the responsibilities, act in advisory capacity to the council concerning policy affecting the planning and development of the water, sewer, sanitation system. Act as a review board or body to study, evaluate, make recommendations on exceptions, interpretations, modifications, and appeals to the regulations. Establish coordination, maintain effective communication with the Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to utility regulation and policies, and to review, evaluate, make recommendations to the council on policies pertaining to other public and private utility companies when requested by council. That one probably won't happen very often. So moving forward, the terms are changing. So I've listed up here what the council adopted earlier this month. They reset a lot of the terms, but they looked at the ones that have been in for more than 2 terms and set those to expire at the end of the year. Actually, a couple of you, a few of you, your terms expired at the end of last year, but we didn't do anything with it because we knew that there might be some changes coming. So now that they're here, this is what it's looking like. And so there will be 4 that will be leaving us at the end of the year. And I think all 4 of you have been here at least 3 or 4 terms. So it's great. We're going to miss having you here, and it certainly appreciate all the service and work that you've done. And we'll just cross our fingers and try to get some more people to apply for the commission. We're not the only ones in this position. There's, I think somebody was telling me, was it 17 that are going to be just across citywide that are going to be vacated at the end of the year due to the term limit requirement. So I'll just note that in addition to all of this, the city attorney is preparing a handbook that will, I think, provide some additional information about serving on a board or a commission, and there will be a lot of talk about public open meeting laws and whatnot. And once that handbook is ready, we'll certainly make that available to everybody. So with that, I would entertain any questions that you might have.
You get a party on the last day?
We should do something. We certainly should do something. We'll call a meeting just to have a party. So, huh? Yeah, so we're certainly getting the word out, and by all means, if you know people that you would recommend, have them start applying. We won't do anything with it probably until December, but I know that there's one already in for the commission. So definitely we'll be looking for more people.
So I had a question on 2-156 membership, Part G, Section 3. I'm sorry, I, on vacancies. What is considered an unexcused absence?
So if you read the last sentence there, it'll tell you, but it's basically if you don't call the chairman or a liaison member saying, hey, I can't make it, is considered an unexcused absence.
Sorry, the last sentence of,
I'll have to,
under vacancies, I'll just read it. If a board or commission member has 3 or more unexcused absences during their term, their position will be deemed to be abandoned and vacated. The mayor and common council shall fill the vacated position in an expedient manner.
so there's somewhere else in the ordinance, it basically says you need to contact the chairman or the staff liaison 24 hours in advance of the meeting and
Okay.
say you're not going to be able to make it. If you don't do that, then it's considered unexcused.
Okay.
If you send an email, yep, that'll be fine, yeah. We just don't want, so one, we want everybody to be here, right? And then
Sure.
two, if you're not, we just want that communication. I don't
Has to be
know.
5 minutes long.
We won't be able to have a meeting until we do. So we're going to work to try to get information out there. Our public information officer is going to be publicizing that we're going to need, that there's going to be vacant positions. I think we're just kind of waiting until we get a little bit closer to start the real big push.
Might ask because it's been a while since I applied. Do you still go to the secretary out front?
So yes,
Apply.
you can apply at the clerk's office, or there's something online as well where someone can apply online.
Okay.
And so and that's another thing that they've done is they've changed the application so that they're all universal, asking for all the same information. But yeah, the clerk's office or online, either way will work.
Has everybody pretty well figured out what you want, or? This is pretty cut and dried, that's kind of what it is. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna proceed on unless we got some more questions. Okay, the water resources report.
Actually,
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for those of you I don't know, I'm Rob Owen, I'm the Public Works Director. I'd like to come more often, but Phil doesn't like to share this commission with anybody else. So Phil had asked me to do this report. We did this for council. The first part of this report is actually based on a report that Mojave County Development Services did for the Board of Supervisors. We worked with the county pretty regularly on water matters, and we'll talk about some of that as we go through this. But please, as we're going through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt. So what we'll go through tonight is the Wallapai Basin report, Kingman Water Supply Plan and actions, water recharge and reuse efforts, water system efficiency improvements, long-term water plans and policies, and legislative efforts. So again, this part of the report was prepared by Tim Walsh from the Development Services Director. So the Wallapai Basin is about a 1,200 square mile basin. It consists of 3 sub-basins. Up north, it's the Gregg sub-basin. Most of the middle portion is the Wallapai Basin. And then to the south is the Kingman sub-basin, and that's where we get most of our water from. So water budgets are something that agencies within active management area have to go through every year. They have to figure out how much water they're taking out of the ground and how much is being recharged. So in 2013, USGS had worked on this, and we had ended up with a deficit in the Wallapai Basin of 5,600 acre feet. So we were withdrawing an additional 5,600 acre feet more than we were recharging. And an acre foot is 350,000 some gallons. Does that sound about right? It's enough to cover a flat area the size of an acre, 1 feet deep. So in 2021, so 2013 is pretty much pre-development of any agricultural uses in the basin. In 2021, that deficit rose to over 30,000 acre feet annually, and the main portion of that was 26,000 acre feet, which is attributed to agricultural withdrawals in the basin. This kind of shows the increase in the number of well permits in the Wallapai Basin. So in 2012, we had 1 well application, and those are applications to the Department of Water Resources. And from 2012 to 2021, there were 242. And I guess what's of concern is that these are non-exempt wells, or these are non-exempt wells. So typically, a domestic well is classified as exempt by the Department of Water Resources, and that generally has a capacity under 35 gallons per minute. So all of these wells are above that. But some of these wells, there were 23 that were capable of 2,000 gallons per minute, and 16 that were capable of 3,000 gallons per minute. So 3,000 gallons per minute is bigger than any well we have in our system. Our biggest wells run about 2,300 gallons per minute. This is some analysis that the county staff did, looking at the amount of acreage that's owned by agricultural interest and what's currently cultivated. So within the basin totals, there's, you can see there's about 8,400 acre feet currently cultivated and 78,000 acre, I'm sorry, not acre feet, just acres, owned by agricultural interest. And that water demand's about 26,900 acre feet. And within the Kingman subbasin specifically, that acre feet water demand's about 16,000 acre feet. So, and just as a reference, the city of Kingman, for a lot of years, we were the biggest user in this basin, and we used between 8,000 and 9,000 acre feet per year, and that's to provide water to 40-some thousand people. So part of what we've done is with the county and the USGS, we've worked to develop this mod flow model. So it's actually a groundwater model that we can enter inputs on water demands, and it gives different scenarios of how long it would take to get to before the water levels would drop to 1,200 feet. 1,200 feet is kind of the magic number with the Department of Water Resources. Anything deeper than that is, there could still definitely be water there, but it's going to be assumed to be a lower quality water. It'll be brinier, saltier, or have a higher mineral content that could likely require additional pretreatment, if you're pumping from that depth before you could enter that into a distribution system. So you'll see that 1,200-foot referenced quite a bit. So the base model was with the city usage from 2017, and that was held constant. And then it was with the existing agricultural usage with a modest growth rate in there. So it showed that it would take 140 years to get to that 1,200-foot depth. The second scenario was with adding in a 2.5% growth on the municipal usage in the system. And that's what we used in the water plan as far as growth, customer growth over the time period of the water plan. It isn't necessarily a direct correlation between population growth and water demand growth. Ideally, our system's becoming more efficient. Our customers are getting better at conservation. So it's hard to say, that would be a direct correlation between those two things, but that's what we plugged in because that's what we had in the water model. So. I'm sorry? So does that mean 40 years of water in 5 years? That's adding in the growth. Yeah, that's adding in the growth on the municipal side rather than holding the municipal usage flat throughout the base evaluation. If I answered your question, I'm not sure. I'm trying to understand. So is this projected at 2.5% increase in usage over the next year? Yes, sir. Yes.
So is the water drought through the lake affecting this also?
I mean, there's a relationship between the lake and the basin, but for the purposes of this this model, it's a very slight influence. I mean, I think hydrogeologists will tell you that water does move from the basin to the lake on the north side, but it's not the main input. Wallapai Basin's kind of a closed basin, and that everything that drains to Red Lake. Over the long term, it has been, yeah. I think you go back and look at some of our old general plans, and some of them had higher growth rates. But if we're in a 30 or 50-year planning effort, then that's been a pretty good number.
Is there any projection on the agricultural growth pertaining to this?
That's coming up.
Oh, okay. Don't mean to get ahead of you.
So 2 more scenarios. So the third scenario was holding the current agricultural usage acreage at its current level, and updated includes the city growth rate, so that's at 130 years to get to 1,200 feet. Scenario number 4 is kind of the worst case. That's the full build out of all the agriculturally owned property, excluding mountains, along with that city growth at 2.5%. It takes us to 50 years to get to 1,200 feet. So this is the first time we've run this model, and this is something we're going to be doing every year. And this year has a lot of information that is, it's good information, but it's based upon observations of how much area has been cultivated, suppositions on how much those particular crops use in water and how that changes over the life of those crops. And hopefully going forward, because right now, none of these wells have to be metered, none of this usage has to be reported. So all we can go by is, what we see. Outside of the active management areas, there's no requirement for anyone to meter their withdrawals of groundwater or report those withdrawals of groundwater. Essentially, all they have to do right now is file for an application with the Department of Water Resources, pay that fee, and provide the cursory information that's required as a part of that permit, and then, of course, pay to have the well constructed. Yes, sir. So what's of concern, I guess, this is all of concern, but that 1,200-foot level, most of our wells are drilled to about 1,000 or 1,100 feet. Most of our pumps are set between 500 and 700 feet. If we got to the point where, we couldn't lower our pumps anymore, we'd be looking at replacing wells. And, wells run right now between $2 to $3 million per. And again, if we're going deeper, we'd be looking at additional treatment because we may have a lower quality of water that we'd be pumping. So this is what we're doing about it. So water supply plan. So the city of Kingman does utilize water from both the Wallapai Basin, the Kingman sub-basin of the Wallapai Basin, and the Sacramento Valley Basin. We have 4 wells downtown. They are small capacity wells, but these wells down here are considered to be part of the Sacramento Valley Basin. So what we're looking to do is develop, and if you look at the scenario on the model, it kind of shows that there's this, right now there's free flow between the Kingman subbasin and the balance of the Wallapai Basin. As we continue to withdraw, the model predicts that there'll be a bridge that forms between that, so the water will not be moving between those 2 basins. So we are in the process of trying to identify well sites in the Wallapai Basin further out, north of Long Mountain is kind of generally where the plan shows that break happening. So looking at trying to identify well sites out there, get that property and prepare to develop well sites out there, and then pump that back in to our system. We've also got a plan. We own property out in Golden Valley that we bought, and that was part of the whole Mojave County Water Authority. When we sold our Colorado River allotment to Havasu and some of the other river users, we used some of that money, those proceeds, to buy future well sites. We do have well site locations out in Golden Valley. And so we have completed a plan identifying a couple different well fields out in Golden Valley that we could develop. It's going to be a very expensive prospect to complete those, which is why it leads us to work up in the Wallapai Basin first. So we do have resources available outside the Kingman sub-basin, and we're working to identify the most feasible and cost-effective ways to try to incorporate that water into our distribution system.
Rob, out in that valley basin, which is the Sacramento,
Mm-hmm.
what's the depths that you have to go out there for the wells?
I think they're similar. I don't know specifically, but I think they're pretty similar to what we're doing. So some of the water recharge and reuse projects that were currently in the works, we are doing a recharge well out at the Hilltop Treatment Plant. We'll be able to recharge to start out with about 1,200 acre feet per year. That's reclaimed water from the treatment plant to help augment groundwater supplies. That hopefully that'll be online come this fall. We've had some supply chain issues with that and with some of the specialty equipment that's required for that. Phil and his team have taken the lead on dry wells, so you'll see there's a couple of these over, there's one at least over at Monsoon Park. There are 10 of them currently developed, but dry wells, essentially, it's a real fancy French drain that you put into a detention basin, allows that storm water runoff where it collects in the basin, allows that to percolate back down. Typically, they're only about 100, 120 feet deep, but it allows you to filter and get that storm water back in to recharge the aquifer. Most of our new subdivisions have infiltration basins. I think that's something we'll be looking at. We talked a little bit later about updating the stormwater management plan, and that's something else that we could look at, maybe some additional requirements with development as far as infiltration basins. We have a purple pipe project because we have the downtown treatment plant, which produces about 300,000 gallons of A-plus effluent, every day, and we really don't have any way to utilize that right now. That's being discharged into the wash. We have this project in place that would allow us to pump that back into downtown, utilize that water for irrigation purposes at some of the schools and some of the city park facilities. It's kind of contingent on a big sewer project that we have pending, but again, that's on hold because the price escalation, went from $8 million to $16 million, so that's on hold for the time being. We're implementing, on the system efficiency side, we're implementing this automated meter infrastructure system, so this will allow us, we've been replacing old manual read meters with updated meters, smart meters. And currently we utilize those. We do kind of drive-by reads, so when the meter reader drives down the street, he or she can pick up all the reads on both sides of the street. A big chunk of our system is still the old manual read system. The AMI aspect of it is that's the communication piece, so the meters will actually transmit the reads at 15-minute intervals. They'll bounce off the receivers and be transmitted down here to utility billing. So it eliminates a lot of the manual part of the meter reading. It also allows us, I think, to provide better customer service because we can set red flags in the system so that when the utility billing folks come in the morning and they see that, Pat Yarish used 2 million gallons worth of water the night before, they can get on the phone to him and let him know something's wrong on his side. I mean, we'll have our crews there, but, we won't be having some of the old, the worst utility commission meetings ever was when the little old lady would show up with some ridiculous water bill and she had a leak for a month that she never knew about, and, it'll eliminate some of those kind of things. Along with that AMI system, you can actually integrate some leak detection into that it'll show you on our side if there's high usage. We also have some kind of manual leak detection that we're able to utilize. We're doing SCADA upgrades on the water side. That's, again, the communication system between the wells, the pumps, the tanks, to make sure that everything's being as efficient as possible. We're going through this non-revenue water management program right now, and this is a way for us to identify within our system where we're losing water. And so right now, the phase that we're in right now is kind of real heavily focused on the utility billing. And so Tina's people have been really great on that project. But it goes through and shows you You know, because you can figure, you know, what your loss is, but it'll say these are probably where those losses are, and allow you to use that to prioritize where you're spending the money to address those issues. And these are some of the recommendations out of there, you know, was increased meter testing, large meter testing programs. So we've implemented quite a bit of that over the last few years. Water plans and policies, you know, we've kind of adopted this one water framework. You know, it doesn't really matter to us if it's, you know, potable water, wastewater, stormwater. I mean, it's all the same resource, and we try to plan for it and integrate that throughout. We've established the Water Sustainability Task Force. That's where we work with the county to coordinate projects and share resources and see where we can partner on projects that would be beneficial to everybody. Attended the Growing Water Smart Workshop, which I think was a good activity for us because we kind of built this team so that, you know, public works, engineering, economic development, planning and zoning, you know, we're all kind of on this team now, and we're sharing all this information so that everybody has the same priorities. You know, our economic development folks aren't out hunting for, you know, for big water users to come here and locate. You know, we've got our niche, we got our market, we know what we're trying to attract. I won't go through all these, but water conservation plan, and we submitted an application to the Bureau of Reclamation for the drought contingency plan update, and then some of the drainage and stormwater. This was the Growing Water Smart Workshop. This is out of the conservation plan. So this shows right now our residential, this is gallons per capita per day. And we're at 89 gallons per capita per day, which is actually really good. And in comparison, we're a lot lower than Phoenix. We're not as low as Tucson. I think Flagstaff leads the state in theirs. But this shows that our customers are pretty good at conserving water. I think as we start firing up our conservation program and getting out there and promoting that more, you know, hopefully that will continue. And these are just some of the observations from the water conservation plan. So, you know, we have our industrial commercial sector, many small users, not many large water using facilities, and, you know, our aim is to keep it that way. And we'll talk about the parks and schools, but generally there's not a lot of turf residentially in our community compared to some other desert communities or high desert communities. And these would be some of the aspects of it. You know, we'd have, again, we're always looking on our side about what we can do to be as efficient as we can. Education, we used to do a lot more reach out before the pandemic with schools. We'll try to get that back up. Technical assistance, maybe, you know, having someone available to do water audits for folks, what, you know, indoor or outdoor water audits. And, you know, ultimately maybe some financial incentives for rebate programs and such. So I guess to get back to the beginning, you know, Mojave County is not authorized by legislature to regulate water usage. That's a state function. So these are the legislative efforts that have been underway. You know, the governor established the West Basin Water User Study Group, along with the non-AMA Groundwater Committee. Back in 2018, the legislature appropriated $100,000 for the first study of the basins, which is commonly referred to as the matrix study. In 2017, we signed the IGA with Mojave County and the USGS to develop the model that we reviewed earlier. And those findings were reported to the council and the board of supervisors in the joint meeting in 2020. Rural Groundwater Working Group was established at the state level in 22. Representative Cobb has introduced 3 bills in 20, 21, and 22 to authorize what would be a new management area type, or rural management area that the counties could opt into. It would give them a little bit more oversight of water usage, water demand outside of the AMAs. Back in June, myself and some county staff and met with Speaker Bowers, and County Supervisor met with Speaker Bowers to discuss groundwater issues. There's been some developments since that time. Groundwater model was presented to the Board of Supervisors. The state budget was passed with $1 billion in funding for water resilience. What exactly that means, I'm not sure yet. And we presented this report to council on July 5th. This kind of talks about what Representative Cobb's proposed as part of the rural management area. It would be similar to an irrigation non-expansion area, but a little different. The county in the past had requested that DWR designate irrigation non-expansion area for this basin, but that was denied because it technically didn't meet the criteria according to the Department of Water Resources for an irrigation non-expansion area. So I think some of the recent discussions have been maybe more about tweaking the irrigation non-expansion area designation, maybe rather than establishing a new rural management area. And that's the report. I can try to answer any questions you might have.
Is there any chance of the city of Kingman using water from Truxton Canyon? That, you know, that's a area where there's water. In fact, that's where the water came from for the Kingman Army Airfield.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
It's definitely a possibility. I think, you know, we've identified these other basins. It's just, we're already established in the Wallapai Basin, in the Kingman Sub-Basin, and technically we're established in the Sacramento Valley Basin. There's some state law on importing water from or across basin boundaries, and I think we'd have to explore for that. But if it's considered part of the Wallapai Basin, then yeah, that would be an area that we could look to.
I asked that question a long time ago. That area has just got all kinds of water. And I was told the same thing, that you cannot import water from different basins. But then how do they get away with doing this water thing from Mojave Valley and somehow exchanging that with Scottsdale, Arizona? I mean,
Well, and yeah, if you know, if you're an expert on Arizona water law, well, God bless you, because you're pretty smart. I mean, it changes dramatically all the time. There are big differences between surface water and groundwater, and it's constantly being litigated. But yeah, there are efforts from, and I think we'll see more in the future from you know, Metro Phoenix Valley communities are going to be reaching outside that area for additional water in the future. And I think there's probably going to be further legislation and further legal action on those fronts.
I just like to compliment what you guys are doing, like with those AMI reads and stuff on those meters and stuff, because we've noticed a huge influx of customers in the city calling in and saying, hey, the water department put a sign on my gate that I've had excessive amount of water usage over the last 4 or 5 days, instead of at the end of the month when it's 45,000 gallons
Yeah.
lost because their toilet's running or they have an underground leak that's not surfacing. You guys are catching it a lot quicker with that. And we're getting the calls directly because of that and able to squash it quicker. So
Well, that's good.
it's,
I mean,
it's working.
that's good for all of us,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
any of that water that's wasted, you know, we've wasted that money that we spent pumping it,
Yeah.
treating it, and distributing it throughout the system. That's all lost
Yeah.
money. So
I agree.
all right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, thanks, Rob, we appreciate the report. The next thing would be announcements by commission members. Does anybody want to request any information, anything somebody wants to say at the meeting at this particular time?
Let you know I'll be resigning after my term at the end of the year.
We resign in December. Okay, do I have a motion for adjournment? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.